Why would you risk that? It's a crime. It's just such a narrow-minded view. I hate that that is such a go-to answer for people. That just makes me angry because it's a game. He got a lot of little hearts in my notes. Yeah, so those are my thoughts on sports. One of the things that made me love it so much too is that they're not horses. It doesn't make sense to me. Hello and welcome to the Ellenmade book club and this book club discussion. Today we're talking about Beartown by Fredrik Backman. Before we continue with the rest of this video, I just have 3 quick announcements. Number 1, this video may contain spoilers. I would recommend that you read the book first. It's really good, but also because, this video may contain spoilers. Number 2, this book deals with some sensitive subjects, and so I would suggest that you check content warnings for this book because those will be discussed in this video as well. And number 3, I forgot to turn my microphone on when I was filming this video, so in the beginning of this video the audio isn't the best, but it will get better in a few minutes. Okay, let's get back into the video. I did do a more brief review of this book in my October wrap-up video, so if that's what you're looking for, you can head over there. In this video, I'm going to be answering questions that I got on my community post where I ask for questions. So yeah, let's head into the first one, which as usual is from Emily at The Linguist's Library. What made you gravitate toward this particular book? So I have seen the TV adaptation of this book. I wasn't blown away by it, but it was a pretty good show. I had also seen the movie adaptation of A Man Called Ove, and after reading A Man Called Ove this summer, I wanted to read more of Backman's books, and I figured that just like with A Man Called Ove, the book would have a lot more to offer than the adaptation could portray. So yeah, I figured this was a good place to continue with my Backman reading. And there were also a bunch of other people here on booktube that wanted to read this book. It started out with Mariandrea from Books and Bocadillos and Reney from Beyond Books. I just figured we could make it a book club read and more people could join in if they wanted to. Somewhere along the way, I also came to realize that there were 2 more books in this series, and so that also helped. So yeah, lots of different reasons for reading this book. The next question is from Chelsea at Libraries and Lattes, and the first one is, were there any characters that you absolutely hated because of their actions, or did you have empathy for all of the characters? I always try to keep an open mind, and I can usually feel empathy for most characters and people in general, and I think that there's more to a person than a specific act. I do find it very difficult to have empathy for a rapist. I can understand that it doesn't happen in a vacuum, like everybody has their context and circumstance, but that's a very distinct line to cross, and yeah, I just find it very difficult to have empathy for someone doing that. No. That being said, in this case, I don't think that he's the only one to blame, and after that event happened, and after people started reacting in different ways, I just took notes of all of my thoughts, and it just became this list of people I was angry at. So I'll just mention some of the things that I wrote down, and I don't think I took note of everything, but these are some of the things that I wrote down. Angry at Kevin. Angry at the older girls at the party who obviously knew Kevin and were talking about what he was going to do to Maya, and they did absolutely nothing about it. Has this happened before? And like, is it that obvious to everyone that he's doing this? I don't understand how girls can let that happen to another girl. I'm gonna try not to go into depth on absolutely everything because I will sit here and talk for hours. And so yeah, let's move on. I was angry at the parents for being more concerned with being a cool mom or a cool dad rather than actually talking to their teenagers about what happened at a party. Who cares if you're cool? Like, that's not your job as a parent to be a cool parent. Like, I don't, this is a side note, but also, like, if you want a teenager to talk, you can't just tell them to talk and then expect them to, and then just leave if they don't. There's also the option to just be there and just be quiet and just leave space for them and leave time for them to want to talk, and then when they want to talk, they will, and then you'll be there. Now I've said that. I was angry at everyone who immediately took Kevin's side and like couldn't even stay neutral. Like, you don't have to believe the girl immediately if you don't want to, and like if you know the guy and you think that he's amazing and you have stakes in it as well, I can understand that you're not immediately jumping over to the other side, but like to so aggressively take Kevin's side and like not leaving any space for the allegations to be true, and then making him into a victim of allegations. Like, there were so many adults in this situation, all of the coaches and like the hockey adults and the parents of all of the players and the players themselves, and everybody turning on Maya immediately and making her out to be the aggressor in the situation. That is infuriating, and I don't think that there's any excuse for that either. Just the idea that girls and women make this up and would, like, of their own free choice, invent that this happened and then tell people and then get all of that negative attention on them. Like, it's just so absurd to me. I don't know how that has taken hold of so many people's minds. That's absurd to me. I can understand that there's doubt. It's just a person saying something happened, and it's good to have some kind of critical thinking, you know, and not just like believe what everybody says all the time. But there are certain things that people will not just make up because it's not something that you want to have people believe happened if it didn't actually happen. And so many infuriating responses and a lot of people to be angry at, and especially the mothers. And there was one mother in particular, and I can't remember her name, but just there is a special place in hell for women who don't support other women. And do I even have my microphone on? I do not. Okay. Mic's on. Okay. I also don't understand why people would rather risk being on his side than on her side. If you are on her side and it turns out that that wasn't the case, the worst thing that has happened is that a guy was falsely accused of something, but it turned out that he was innocent, and that was the worst thing that happened. And I'm not saying that's a good thing, but I'm saying the likelihood of that being the case is pretty low. And the worst case scenario is still not that bad. Whereas if you're on his side and you're wrong, that means that there was a girl who was raped and you took the side of the rapist. Why would you risk that? Like, why would you gamble on that? I don't understand. And then also the discussions about working this out internally, like within the team, like, why couldn't you just come and talk to us? It's a crime. There is no obligation to go to the coach when a crime has occurred. Then you go to the police, because the police deals with crimes and coaches do not. And that's not how things work. And it's just such a narrow-minded view, and it's just such a small world, and it just says so much that they were even talking like that. And so anyways, those were things that made me mad. I don't think that I hated any particular character. I more so hated the fact that this is how people behave. Like, I'm more angry at the fact that this is not made up, like the fact that it actually happens this way and that people actually talk and think this way. That's where my anger is directed towards. I don't really care which character said it in the book, in this particular story, I'm thinking more of a like society aspect of it, I guess. I hate that that is such a go-to answer for people, to say that she's lying and he's super nice. Like, yeah, to you. Anyways, I don't have a lot of empathy for Kevin though. I don't know what's gonna happen in the next 2 books, and if there is anything that could make me empathize with him, but still, like, no matter what has happened to you, I don't think that there's any excuse to do that to someone else. Yeah. And when I say that he's not the only one to blame, I don't mean that he is not 100% responsible for his own actions, because he definitely is. I'm just saying that there are also circumstances and a context that has enabled this event to take place, and I think that's just as important to understand and be aware of and change. And yeah, I'll talk about that more in a minute in a later question. The next question is also from Chelsea, and she asks, did any of the characters grow on you over time? Yes, the one that comes to mind is Benji. In the beginning, he's portrayed as just being violent, and that's not something that, you know, inspires likability. But he grew on me over time, just because, you know, the more you learn about him, the more you understand he is a good person and a good friend and someone who can tell right from wrong and stand up for what he believes in, and that he's also going through some things himself. And so, yeah, he's definitely one that stands out. The other one that I just came to think of is the other hockey player who is really mean to Amat. I can't remember his name, but I think if you have read the book, you know who I mean. The next question from Chelsea is, how did you feel about the hockey aspect of this story? Did that add or take away your enjoyment of it? Coming from someone who doesn't like or follow sports. I couldn't care less about sports either. And so the hockey aspect was not interesting to me in the sense of like the sport itself and like anything about that. But it was interesting to me as a backdrop for the story and as an aspect of society that makes people do weird things. I've always found sports to be a little bit ridiculous, and like grown men running around on a field chasing a ball and then getting very upset when they fail to win. I get that it's a very like human thing to want to measure and compare and like set goals and see who can run the fastest and jump the highest, and like it's all great fun to play games, and I like playing games too, but like it's still a game. You're still chasing a ball or a puck or whatever. Like it's a game. And then people start talking about, you know, there's money in it and you can get an education from it and you can make a career out of it. And that just makes me angry because why are players paid millions to chase after a ball when nurses are paid so little for saving lives and like taking care of everyone we love in their weakest moments? It doesn't make sense to me. And then people start talking about how sports keep kids off the streets and away from crime. And that's great, but if we need sports to keep kids off the streets, then I think we have other problems. That means they are lacking safety and care and purpose and opportunity in other areas of life. And so I think that those areas should be addressed as well, and not just like keep counting on sports to save the day, to keep kids off the streets. And then people start talking about the community of it all and how it brings people together and the joy and the camaraderie, and it teaches people to be a team player. And those things are all great, but if being a team player means that you can't voice your own opinion and you can't speak up when something is wrong and bad, then it starts being dangerous, like any other kind of cult. I don't have anything against sports itself. It is great exercise and it's great for community and it's fun and joy and camaraderie and all of those things, and being a team player is a great thing. And there are so many good things coming from sports, but that doesn't mean that it's all good and that it's not complex and open to problems. And yeah, so those are my thoughts on sports. Okay. So to answer your question, all of that being said, it added to my enjoyment of the story because it takes a critical look at sports as a phenomenon and how it affects our society and the people in it and what the cost of sports can be, while also having a respect for the joy and the love within the sport and for the sport and all of the good things that it brings. I think the book has so much nuance and it looks at the sport from so many different angles and perspectives, and it covers so much of the different meanings that sport can have for different people, and I thought that was very well done. It also made me think a lot about coaches, like in hockey, but like in general, any coach that works with kids and their roles and their responsibility in the upbringing, really, of the kids. Because I can hear the arguments in my head that the coaches should, only focus on the game and the sport and discipline and winning and, confidence and being a team player and all of those kinds of aspects, that they have no business talking about anything other than the sport itself, whatever the sport is. And I would imagine that the argument then is that the coaches aren't qualified to do that and that they have no business talking about other things than what they're qualified to talk about. And that's weird to me, because if you don't think that a coach is qualified to teach your kids to be a good person off the field, then why are you allowing them to teach them anything? I understand that there has to be limits to what a coach should interfere with in a kid's upbringing, but like just being a good person and respecting the law and other people outside of the field, and like talking about respect and like basic things like that. If the coach isn't qualified to do that, then I don't know what he's doing working with kids at all. And if you don't think that's true, then why aren't we making sure that the coaches are qualified to talk about those things? Teach them then if they're not qualified already. I don't understand why that isn't a priority. And then finally, the hockey aspect also made me think about how adults treat kids in sports. And it just felt to me like the adults are betting on horses or something. They're just investing so much and just hoping so bad for these horses to win. But they're not horses, they are their sons. And these kids just have so much pressure on them, like the pressure of everybody's future, basically. And I don't think that that's fair. That's way too much pressure to put on any child. The adults are supposed to care for and make sure that the kids' future is secured and not the other way around. So yeah, it just made me think about that, and it's a very thought-provoking book. And then I have two questions from Reney at Beyond Books, and the first one is, how does Beartown compare to A Man Called Ove? The first comparison that comes to mind is that Ove made me sad and Beartown made me angry. A Man Called Ove tells the story about one man and his experiences and connections with different people and how he is affected by that in good ways and bad. Whereas Beartown looks at society and how we are all complicit when one of our children makes a victim out of another. And then the next question is, which one impressed you more and why? I think Beartown impressed me more. I think A Man Called Ove was a brilliant book as well, but in Beartown there is just such a range of characters and perspectives and angles and experiences, and I think that they're all very believable and well written, and there is such a clear-sightedness, both like up close and in someone's mind, and then also like big picture perspective, and both on like the people and on their sport and society and like the potential consequences of things being the way they are. Because this is not a fictional story in the sense that things like this never happen in real life. They definitely do. It doesn't have to be because of sports, but it's definitely a real phenomenon where real girls and women pay the price for men trying to score in a game. So to end this on a somewhat more positive note, I want to just shout out a couple of unsung heroes maybe in this book and characters that I felt a lot of love for. The ones that I took note of was Leo, Maya's little brother. He got a lot of little hearts in my notes. Yeah. And then the other one is Ramona, who is the bartender who ends up slapping one of the men because he just blames the whole thing on hockey. And she just, I can't remember the exact quote, but she says something along the lines of, don't blame it on the hockey or religion or guns. Like, you men are always blaming it on some of these other things that you created, and it's never your own fault. But it's not hockey or religion or guns that do any of these things. It's men that are raping and beating and killing, and you need to take some responsibility for that. Not all men, I know, but those things are being done by men. I also took note of how Anna felt about hockey, and I could relate to that a lot. She was talking about how girls aren't allowed to just like hockey a little bit. If you say that you like hockey, there's going to be a guy there to test you on trivia, like hockey history, and if you can't answer everything correctly, then you're not a true hockey fan. And she also talks about how the guys are taught that girls are a distraction, which means they're only good for one thing, and no one teaches them that no means no. Maybe that wasn't the most positive note ever to end on, but that's the most positive I can get from this story. It is a very serious topic that's being dealt with in this book, and like that's one of the things that made me love it so much too, is that it's not just about the hockey and it's not just about the crime. There's also love and growing up and friendship and parenting and teaching and coaching, and there are just so many aspects and themes to this story, and like all of the kids' different like situations at home, and yeah, there's just so much to this book, and I'm really excited to get to the next part in this series. I hope you have enjoyed reading this book as well, and that you're excited to read the next book in the series, and that you enjoyed this video. And yeah, I think that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Since this is a book club, and since this is a book, and as this is a book club discussion, and as this is, and as a book club discussion video, this video may contain spoilers.